Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
I would never sit here and tell you, you gotta watch this every day. But I would tell you that sometimes, on occasion, you can watch the Georgia Senate live streams on YouTube. I mean, actually, you can watch their live streams on YouTube anytime they're doing that. What I'm saying is, it's not always must-see viewing. However, on occasion, you get these little nuggets of, oh, this is entertaining. Here's such an example. 14th District Senator Josh McLaren has started a new little feature on his daily time at the podium.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm the senator from the 14th, and this is Trump Morning News. Trump Morning News, your leading entity in Trump morning entertainment, keeping you apprised of the health of your democracy. Today in Trump Morning News, we're discussing over the weekend the radical takeover by tech billionaire Elon Musk of the entire federal government. If you think that's an exaggeration, just look at what he and his privately appointed deputies have done. They've walked into the General Services Administration, GSA, the OPM, Office of Personnel Management, and the Department of the Treasury to take over critical functions of the federal bureaucracy. Now, technically, President Trump issued an executive order to rename the USDS digital service to the US Doge service. For those of you who are unaware, Doge, D-O-G-E, is a reference to a dog of the Shiba Inu breed, which is a meme and an online joke, if you will, around which Elon Musk has developed a cryptocurrency coin, as well as the entire branding of federal bureaucratic reform. He has installed one of his privately appointed deputies as chief of staff of the Office of Personnel Management, overseeing the management of millions of federal personnel files. It appears that his top team did not go through normal hiring or background check procedures before they took office and started reviewing the entire federal bureaucracy. Wired.com has reported that there is a crack team of 6 deputies that Musk has installed at GSA and other agencies that range between the ages of 19 and 24 years old, who have started reviewing federal bureaucrats at the highest levels. Bureaucrats are reporting to Wired that they had to go into private meetings with these college kids and justify their entire roles. One of them, his name is Edward, has a LinkedIn profile in which the handle of the LinkedIn profile is Big Balls. Now, I remember, and this is just me editorializing, when I was a kid and I had an email address applying to jobs, I received the advice, you should probably change your email address to something professional. Nonetheless, one of Musk's top deputies is named Big Balls. These individuals have been systematically shutting out duly appointed federal officials from their access to various agencies. One of the first actions that was taken was to shut down the USAID, which is an organization that Elon Musk has called criminal on Twitter. USAID, for those at home, is an agency responsible for overseas aid delivery that has been one of the most important components of the United States' exercise of soft power in the post-war era. USAID has hundreds of employees who are illegally fired over the weekend, which leads to millions of dollars of aid overseas that are not being administered. Many critical care clinics and other administration sites of aid have been shut down, leading to people not getting critical disease care and probably causing a number of deaths. But I digress. Another agency that has had immense unprecedented personnel actions over the weekend is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. Thousands of employees who were involved in the January 6th investigation, one of the largest federal investigations of all time, now have their employment in jeopardy because the order from President Trump was to essentially question everybody involved in the Jan 6 investigation and in many cases terminate them. Many FBI employees have already been unlawfully sidelined. I've heard rumors that there is a protest by FBI agents planned. Let's hope we don't pass a bill to call them domestic terrorists for protesting. Finally, the Elon Musk team has gained access to the federal payment system at the Department of Treasury. For those of you at home, the Department of Treasury is more or less a checkbook for the rest of the federal government. Under the auspices of reform and cutting waste, Elon Musk has gained access to the payment system and threatened to stop payments unilaterally and at his own discretion based on his own judgment about which payments deviate from federal law or which are, quote, woke. One of those payments is to a Lutheran charity or nonprofit organization, which he criticizes for being Lutheran. Ding dong, hello, advocates of religious freedom, be warned, Elon Musk is specifically targeting a payment system on the basis of its Christian affiliation. Mm-hmm. Here with critical commentary on today's news is our special guest, the senator from the 14th. Senator from the 14th?
That's him.
Are you guys watching this? We have a private takeover of the federal government that is being labeled reform. It is clearly in violation of a number of federal laws, at the very least of which is records retention, that a lot of websites that are being unilaterally taken down, public data sets at the CDC that were unavailable for, like a CDC employee had to go out of bounds and upload those to a drive online just so there would be access to them. Right. We have people who haven't gone through security clearances who are using Gmail addresses to join top-level OPM meetings. This is an effing circus.
Yep.
And I guess, sorry, that's all the time that the guest has. That's all the time we have this morning for Trump Morning News. As always, we remind you, your state legislators, you can't do anything directly about this, and there's nothing the Republican Party could have done in the last 20 years. Oh, and by the way, Musk did a Hitler salute on stage. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Yeah, that's something. I don't know if he's going to do it every day. Tune in tomorrow. We'll find out. I'll be tuning in later to find out. But that's somewhat. Listen to, if you get a chance to go back and listen to this, you can hear the show via podcast anytime once I post it. We air weekdays, 9 a.m., 5 p.m. on American One Radio. We also play at 11 p.m. on Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Or you can, I'll put the YouTube link. There you go. I'll even time it so that you can just go right to the point on the YouTube, so you don't have to listen to all 1 hour and 2 minutes of the Senate session beforehand. But you can hear the well. There's no one booing. There's no grousing or anything like that. There's some chuckling, and I can't imagine it's all Democrats that are chuckling. Humor. There seems to be some humor. In today's Atlanta Journal-Constitution Politically Georgia blog, I guess this accompanies their podcast that airs weekdays as well. Greg Bluestein, Tia Mitchell, Patricia Murphy, Adam Beam reporting on this. Don't know who the embed was. They write, much of it had to be their comedy, but it has so far amused his Republican colleagues more than angered them. That might be the point. And this quote, when they asked him about this, if you just go up to the well and you scold everybody, people get tired of that very quickly. The wrapper for this daily speech or near daily speech is just a little bit of flavor, almost like a sugar pill around the medicine, so that it can go down a little easier. The blog post continues. The bit is more than just comic relief. It's also his take on how Democrats should change their messaging following their defeats in the November general election. Okay, listen, I get how, you don't have to tell me, I watch The Daily Show frequently. I get how you can wrap the craziness of what's going on into comedy, because it would be funny, except I firmly believe that as we were castigated for being hyperbolic about in 2024, I do believe that our democracy is at a razor's edge, and we're seeing not just the dictatorial actions of a man who said he was going to be a dictator just on day one, but we're 2 weeks into this now. And while Congress, again, both chambers led by his party, do absolutely nothing, and a 6-3 majority Supreme Court primed to allow it, you do have to wonder just how prescient the cries of fascism or the loss of our democratic values and power as an American voter are. This blog post continues, by the way, and I'll bring her up here. His colleague, Democrat State Senator Nikki Merritt of Grayson, has a more straightforward approach. As chair of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, she warns of the fallout from Trump policies, from tariffs to transgender rights. Here she is.
So yes, we are now, Black History Month started 2 days ago on the 1st. And I have some concerns. I have some concerns on behalf of black people and on behalf of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. And I am concerned about the Trump administration's attack on black history. Black history is history, And maybe if the Trump administration would study history, they would understand that black history is history and is worthy to be celebrated at all levels of government. We're trying to erase the contributions that black people have made to this country and to this state. And it includes contributions of black veterans who served this country, given their lives to serve this country, given valuable contributions. This has effect on black veterans. Why is it controversial to study and celebrate Tuskegee Airmen? Why is that controversial? We have already fought this fight here over the summer when we were out, when the superintendent tried to erase AP African American Studies from our state curriculum. And I do hope many of you are running in seats or plan to run in the next 2 years. I expect all of my colleagues in here to condemn the actions of the Trump administration and understand fully the implications that it will have on black people and what statement you're sending to black people in the state of Georgia. Almost half of our population is black and minority. Mm-hmm. So if you're running, I ask that you walk carefully. Join me in condemning any erasing of black history. And Mr. President, I yield the will.
She mentioned the Tuskegee Airmen. Surely over the weekend you noticed this as well. The Associated Press reporting that the squadron, which trained in the state of Alabama, was the nation's first to be comprised of black military pilots, shattering racial barriers and racist beliefs about the capabilities of black pilots. Ironic that this comes up in the heat of DEI reactionary quipping after a plane crash over the Potomac in Washington, right? The AP piece continues, their success in combat paved the way for desegregation of the U.S. military, a story that is interwoven in state and U.S. history. Yet, for a moment after President Donald Trump took office, that history was almost scrubbed by the Air Force. The service removed training videos of the Tuskegee Airmen, along with one showing the World War II contributions of the Women's Air Force Reserve Pilots, or WASPs, at its basic training base in San Antonio, where airmen have passed through for generations. Although the move was swiftly rescinded after a bipartisan outcry, the fact that it happened, even momentarily, is evidence of the confusion resulting from the avalanche of executive orders and other actions from Trump since he began his second term in the White House. The administration has been forced to walk back some actions that have caused widespread chaos, such as a memorandum freezing federal grants and loans. Anyway, Senator Merritt brought up the Tuskegee Airmen. I wanted to give the backstory on that. So, you know, her statement at the well, Josh McLaren's comedy skit at the well at the Georgia State Capitol, it's theater right now. There's, as you heard the Senator McLaren say, there's nothing that can be done here at the State General Assembly that's going to change any of this. I mean, they could, and they don't have the votes to, but they could do a proclamation or something. It doesn't matter. It's not going to happen, especially in Georgia. And even if it did come from a blue state legislature, so. I mean, that's kind of where we don't even have action in Congress. We don't see a glimmer of response from the House or the Senate, or do we? Actually, I'm going to give you a little bit of audio from a New Republic podcast where a Virginia congressman suggests one way Democrats could come up the works when the Ron Show returns. The Ron Show is about 44 minutes, 44 and a half, 45 minutes sometimes long. Sometimes it goes a little longer for podcast use just because I have interviews that go a little bit longer. I don't like to curtail a good conversation. You can always go back and listen to any of my podcast episodes or episodes that you hear on this show at America One Radio Progressive Voices via TuneIn at ronshowatl.com. There's also a donate tab, by the way. This is all an out-of-pocket expense. You don't hear commercials within the show. And I'd kind of like to keep it that way if possible. Yeah, no, I'd very much like to keep it that way if possible. I listen to, being a former radio guy, I listen to sports talk radio all the time. And when I hear one of their personalities go off and start reading a script from some business that is obviously paying them as a paid endorser, to me it's cringy. I'm not going to endorse anything that I'm not passionate about myself in the first place. And so that's going to be pretty limited in and of itself. So I try to keep this this entire show as commercial free as possible. I will, work behind advocacy organizations, sometimes even candidates to some respect, but you're not going to hear me pitching products. And if you, like me, would like to keep it that way, by all means, please help us out. You can donate to The Ron Show at ronshowatl.com. Greg Sargent, the New Republic, had a chance to speak with Congressman Don Beyer of Virginia, reacting to all that's gone on just in the last 36 hours with Elon Musk and some teenage guys and some early 20s fellas, some Doja boys who have infiltrated Treasury's computer systems. And what can Democrats even do about any of this? Here's Greg Sargent with a question.
If Trump is going to have Elon pinpoint groups who don't merit payment, and then Trump is going to unilaterally cancel those payments through Elon's control over Treasury payment systems, that's not legal, is it?
I don't believe it is legal, Greg, and we will be fighting it, and often we'll be fighting it alongside the groups whose money is being denied. Once again, there are legal ways to do this if they don't like a specific measure of spending or a specific contractor. In the budget that we're trying to pass right now, they can clearly put that in the language. By the way, among the levers that we have, number one is that we've already passed this debt ceiling, and we're using special measures to get by. But he can't raise the debt ceiling without our help. And similarly, we don't have a budget yet for the fiscal year we're almost halfway through right now. And in a 217, 215 House, Trump can never get that budget passed without our help. Obviously, we want to fund the government, but we want to do it in a responsible way. And what he's doing is completely irresponsible.
Of course.
Well, so here we've got Trump trying to unilaterally turn off payments via the Treasury Department, we think. He tried an unconstitutional, illegal spending freeze the other day, backed off in the face of an outcry. Is there a case for the Democratic opposition to do something like this? For Democrats in the House and Senate to get together and say something like, Mr. President and Republicans, you will not get one vote for any policy or any nominee at any point unless you rescind this power you've given to Elon Musk. Is there a way to do something like that?
Yeah, Greg, there absolutely is. And we spent a lot of today just talking about it in the last week. It's hard for us because we believe in the institutions of government, the institution of Congress. It's hard to go to work and say, we're going to go gum up the works as best we can because we want it to work. On the other hand, if that's the only tool we have in order to rein in this dictatorial example of power, then we must use it. And that may mean voting, for example, the senators. They voted en masse as Democrats for people like Marco Rubio and Doug Burgum. Maybe from this day on, they don't do any of that.
Yep.
Put those types of things that used to be routine and make them not routine until Trump stops breaking the law.
Well, you brought up earlier that the Republican majority in the House is extremely slim. So if all House Democrats were to vote against pretty much anything, it makes it almost certain not to pass. Do you think that House Democrats, or is there discussion of maybe House Democrats essentially acting as a bloc and saying no votes for anything, no matter what, until this kind of madness stops? Trump has authorized Elon Musk to do illegal things. That has to end, or no votes for anything.
Yeah, Greg, we haven't had those conversations yet. The House was out last week, so people were in the district doing all kinds of important things. We come back tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and meet on Wednesday morning at 9:00. I am sure that unity against Trump will be topic number one. And so far, in the 2+ years that Hakeem Jeffries has been our leader, we have been extraordinarily united. And I believe that Trump makes that ever more likely.
And then towards the end of this conversation, Greg Sargent asked this stark question.
Do you think these are impeachable offenses he's committing already?
I don't know. I would suspect that they are, although having been through 2 Trump impeachments so far, I personally would be reluctant to go down that road again unless we can see a way to get to the necessary votes in the Senate.
In other words, you're going to have a handful of brave Republicans who are going to dare to speak ill of dear leader, the fascist dictator, on day 1, but only day 1 into week 3. They have had more than 7 years to show any hint of a spine whatsoever to speak up, to stand up to this man's actions. By the way, I don't know if you watched the Mitch McConnell 60 Minutes piece over the weekend. We'll dive into some of that audio, but there's a profile in lack of courage in and of itself. I don't know what impeachable actions Donald Trump would have to concoct to finally turn enough Republicans. He literally said he could shoot a man in broad daylight and get away with it, and he's not been wrong so far.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
So, one of the reasons I firmly believe, that our country is in the peril that it's in is because we can both look at the same, I'd say both, I'm left and right. We can look at the same picture and see 2 completely different things. Yesterday was riding the fiscal roller coaster. Wall Street down, Wall Street back up slightly, Wall Street down, because of all of the gamesmanship, the brinksmanship that President Donald Trump has been playing with imposing tariffs on our neighbors and 2 of our greatest allies in Mexico and Canada. And I'll get into the specifics of what happened with the tariffs that we never did impose because Canada and Mexico made some agreements that I largely believe they'd made already before anyway. But that's another... Perhaps this is all about optics, and this is about playing to an audience. The problem is sometimes those in the media are the audience. Here locally on WSB at night, WSB AM and FM radio, a guy by the name of Shelley Winter. Y'all got to listen to this guy from time to time. It's... well, suffice to say, he's on at 7 p.m., and he only got an hour last night because of the Bulldog Coaches Show. I guess the University of Georgia basketball program had a coaches show. That's how important this guy. Anyway, Shelley Winter leading off his hour on the radio yesterday with this. This is the take that he had on Tariff Palooza yesterday.
Canada caved. Mexico caved.
Didn't happen.
Colombia caved.
Not really.
Venezuela caved.
Yeah, not really.
Canada, they caved. Mass deportations are going on. Oh, by the way, in 2 weeks, our hostages are home. DEI programs are getting slashed all over the place. Bureaucracy is being slashed all over the place. Unelected bureaucrats are being tossed about.
By Elon Musk, the unelected bureaucrat?
The FBI is being purged. USAID, we'll get to that. U.S. agency, what is it?
What it is.
Development, international development. It's USAID. They're canceled, going under the Secretary of State's office, the State Department. XY, that's it. Sent out email. Hey, guys, take away your pronouns. XY. Doge has saved billions of dollars, and it's been 2 weeks.
Not yet.
51 intel agents have all lost their security clearance. They are not allowed in the buildings. They are not allowed in the buildings. You remember the 51 intelligence agents that signed that letter? They're not allowed. They have no security clearance. They can't make a dime off of their previous experience.
And by the way, that makes you and I less safe than it did before those security clearances were pulled. But I want to go back to the Canada-Mexico tariffs thing. Again, sometimes you can find some really enlightening information in comedy. So we get this 4 nights a week from Comedy Central. Why is it just 4 nights a week? I never understood that. Let's go to The Daily Show. Jon Stewart.
Now, in Trump's defense, he did explain today why we're going after Canada.
I mean, I look at some of the deals made, I say, who the hell made these deals that so bad?
So bad. The trade deals with Canada, they're so bad. He's just looking and saying, who made these? Ladies and gentlemen.
You know.
Don't get ahead of me.
You know, though.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your dining and dancing pleasure, come with me into the Wayback Machine to 2018. I give you the culprit of the terrible deal with Canada.
This morning, President Trump signed a new trade deal to replace NAFTA with the leaders of Mexico and Canada.
The best trade deal they say ever made.
No! A deal done by Trump's greatest nemesis, Trump. Now, hold on. But President Trump, this trade war has awoken a sleeping giant. Not Canada, not Mexico, but the Democratic minority Senate leader. Release the Schumer!
It's going to affect beer, okay? Most of it, Corona here, comes from Mexico.
And he pulls up a Corona
It's going to affect your guac, because what is guacamole made of? Avocados.
Your response to the trade war is to f***ing tell us guacamole is made of avocados? Is that what? When the people find out the precious Super Bowl dip is comprised of mainly avocado, also tomato, sometimes onion, it's a bit much.
Gotta do
for
the
me,
onion.
obviously, with the spilkis and
Some garlic. Yeah. Skip ahead a little bit here, though, in the
Before
audio.
we get rattled by Trump's 2 to 2.5 front trade war, please understand, Mexico has already today received a 30-day stay on tariffs by promising 10,000 troops to the border, and we've promised to stop the inflow of guns. So, self-invented crisis averted. But what can Canada do? I'm sure there's an equally performative gesture Canada could make.
What I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state.
So insulting.
Mexico, you just sent a few troops to the border. But Canada, if you could, I don't know, cease to exist as an independent entity, fair? What's that, Mexico? No, there's only 51 states. There's no 52nd. I'm sorry.
Not you.
Washington, D.C.? Go yourself. All right. What's that, Puerto Rico? No, it's Canada. I think you know why. Canada.
Yeah, a lot of white people. So I want to read to you the tweet that came from the president of Mexico, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, which details the negotiations between she and Donald Trump. She wrote, "We had a great conversation with President Trump with great respect for our relationship and sovereignty. We reached a series of agreements. Mexico will immediately reinforce the northern border with 10,000 members of the National Guard to prevent drug trafficking from Mexico to the United States, particularly fentanyl." So let's stop there. First of all, there are already 15,000 Mexican troops along the border. So the question is, are there going to be 5,000 less or 10,000 more? Let's get that in writing. Let's make sure that we got that in writing. Anyway, the idea of preventing drug trafficking from Mexico to the United States, specifically fentanyl, hey, that's good. Here's the problem. Most fentanyl smuggled into the United States is smuggled in by American citizens. So when Mexican troops arrest or kill an American, they suspect, just a suspect of smuggling in fentanyl or any drug. I want to know what the White House and MAGA's reaction is going to be to an American citizen being killed by a Mexican National Guardsman. Okay. Point number 2 that President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo made. The United States is committed to working to prevent the trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico. Okay. She says, our teams will begin working today on 2 fronts, security and trade. They are pausing tariffs for 1 month from now. So the clock's already ticking. 29 more days. Let's go back to that second point you made. The United States is committed to working to prevent the trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico. Yeah, see? That's the problem, y'all. That's the problem. The drug cartel is empowered by weapons. And we all know here in the United States, even states with tougher gun laws can't stop weapons from states with lax gun laws from making it into their democratic liberal enclaves, like Chicago. We hear so much about Chicago. Oh my God, Chicago has the toughest gun laws, and yet all these murders. Yes, because Chicago, like your sphincter is surrounded by a bunch of. No, I mean, I'm just like most of the weapons that are seized from Chicago crimes come from red states, nearby red states like Indiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi. So I'm happy to see in writing here, of course, from the Mexican president, how tenacious the Trump administration is going to be on this front, given the GOP's penchant for detoothing the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms here domestically. And, of course, we're seeing its parent law enforcement agency, the FBI, continuing to be gutted of personnel not loyal to Trump. So let's see what's going to come of that. By the way, here's some audio from Abby Phillip last night, CNN Newsnight with Abby Phillip. I thought this was an important exchange to bring to everyone's attention as Trump is trying to take a victory lap for these tariff preventions.
Uncertainty in the chaos. First of all, Trump is trying to repackage the status quo as a victory. That's what the leaders of these foreign countries are learning. You don't actually have to give Trump anything.
You just have to make it seem like
you have to let him announce victory on TV. Second of all, it's not actually back to the status quo. It is worse than the status quo. As Richard points out, we have tarnished our relationships with our allies whose help we need to rein in China, which I know you care about. Beyond that, think about the additional uncertainty that's being added to the business environment right now. If you are a company and you don't know if tariffs are coming or they're not coming, you don't know if your input costs are going to go up or they're not going to go up,
That's true.
Why would you invest? Why would you invest in oil pipelines, for example, to Canada? I know you really care about the Keystone Pipeline, for example.
I mean, the one that Biden killed.
Yeah, that
you know that would be the oil coming from Canada, which Trump is now threatening to tariff.
But
why would anybody
we have a deal.
We have a 30-day deal for nothing.
For nothing. Yes, exactly. We have a 30-day deal for absolutely nothing. And for that reason, Donald Trump is taking, and Shelley Winter and company are taking victory laps. This is what I'm telling you is the problem. We have, no matter how you want to look at the painting, we're looking at the same damn painting, but we're seeing two different pictures because our media is giving us two different realities. There's what really happened and the actual specifics of a deal, and then there's Mexico caved, Canada caved. This is The Ron Show. Final few minutes, today's Ron Show. Thank you for listening, whether it's on America One Radio. We air that weekdays, 9 a.m., 5 p.m., there, 11 p.m., Progressive Voices via TuneIn. The TuneIn app available wherever you download your apps, as is America One Radio. They have their own app. That's right. Or if you listen wherever you podcast, hey, thank you for doing that. I do appreciate that. Just letting you know where you can listen to this show first before I do the podcast part. Back to Abby Phillip, Newsnight, Scott Jennings, and Catherine Rampell going toe-to-toe over the number of troops that Mexico now has at the border. Again, Donald Trump got played. 10,000 troops at the border. They have 15,000 now. So it sounds like it's less. And even Scott Jennings seems to confess, yeah, it's not as many as Mexico has had there before. But they're different kinds of troops. They're going to be more permanent-y, more sticky than they were before. Here's that exchange.
Back to what Trump got for threatening a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada. What did he get?
On Mexico, he got a permanent set of troops, not temporary, just during surges. He got permanent troops. And on Canada, let me tell you what he got.
You cannot just, hold up, you can't just insert your own qualifications into this. Where does it say that it's permanent?
The White House told me tonight that the commitment they have from Mexico is that they will put permanent troops.
Do you know how many troops Mexico had on the border last year?
It goes up and down.
15,000.
It goes up and down. It's temporary. So now they're getting a permanent force.
Let me ask you, is 10,000 more
is
or
permanent,
less
is permanent
than
better than temporary?
You know what's more?
Is 15,000 more or less than 10? Is temporary better than permanent? Well, first of all, they're National Guard troops. So by nature, they are temporary. Even in Mexico, Guard troops are temporary versus permanent, Scott. Also from CNN, Caitlin Collins with this fresh report last night.
Now we've just gotten this announcement from Trudeau himself, who I should note got out ahead of the White House in this. He said he had a good call with Trump. He said that Canada is going to be implementing a $1.3 billion border plan where they talk about reinforcing the border. I should note that's actually something that Trudeau announced and Canada announced back in December. About mid-December. But also in this announcement, Jake, he says that they are going to have frontline personnel working and protecting the border after concerns about fentanyl coming across. And he said that they are going to be appointing a fentanyl czar and that they will list cartels as terrorists and ensure 24/7 eyes on the border. I believe it is the fentanyl czar that is new here, but it's that last sentence, Jake, there at the end is the most important here. He says, proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together.
So now we're going to have a fentanyl czar in Canada, which I believe the number of kilograms of fentanyl that came from Canada was like 19, if I remember correctly. I remember seeing this in an article, and it was like 900,000. Hang on, let me pull this up. Let me find it because I want to be specific about this. Also from CNN, Daniel Dale with a fact check. Just 0.2% of U.S. border fentanyl seizures are at the Canadian border. Trump has lumped together the Canadian border and the Mexican border when talking about illegal fentanyl reports. Daniel Dale writes, the day after his inauguration in January, for example, he said, quote, the fentanyl coming through Canada is massive. The fentanyl coming through Mexico is massive. But there is a massive difference, Daniel Dale writes, between the extent of the problem at the two borders. Federal statistics show U.S. border authorities seized 21,889 pounds of fentanyl in the 2024 fiscal year. Of that amount, 43 pounds were seized at the Canadian border. 43 pounds. My two cats combined weigh that. Seriously. Yeah, they're chunky. About 0.2% compared with, from 43 pounds coming through Canadian border with us, compared with 21,148 pounds at the Mexican border, or about 96.6%. Daniel Dale writes, there's no indication of any substantial change in the first 3 months of the 2025 fiscal year. Of the 4,537 pounds of fentanyl seized by U.S. border authorities during that period, 10 pounds, about 0.2%, were seized at the Canadian border. 10 pounds. While 4,409 pounds, or about 97.2%, were seized at the Mexican border. And as I mentioned before and say ad nauseum, most of the fentanyl that comes in through the United States comes in the bags, the suitcases, the pockets, I don't know, the hidden compartments, inside vehicles, driven by, walked in by, pulled by, carried by American citizens. Not coyotes, not the animals, I mean like the people. Not by those who are unwittingly loaded down with fentanyl. American citizens. We are our own problem. I may have said that before, which, as I'm wrapping up today's show, this is a little tangential on my part. We're cutting off aid through USAID. We're cutting off aid to poorer countries that have been disproportionately affected by woes largely out of their control, whether it be socioeconomic, political, diplomatic, environmental, natural disasters, things of that nature. A lot of what third world countries deal with and try to overcome comes from our enjoying the way we live. And like the petulant brats that we are, refuse to curtail. We can't talk about climate change or the actions that we need to take without mockery and derision from the right. How many times have you heard or seen social media videos of someone in a Prius trying to do the right damn thing, or that's what they prefer? I think they're hideous little cars, but somebody buys a hybrid vehicle in the early stages of the hybrid or electric vehicle manufacturing boom that came about. And you'd have some jackass, Confederate flags emblazoned on their truck or biceps or whatever, and they'll coal roll them Literally, you've got these yokels retrofitting their pick-em-up trucks to blow coal smoke at whim. We can't have discussions about our energy use. We can't have discussions about our agricultural, the methane effect of our cattle. We can't do any of this stuff. We can't be asked to make sacrifice one without hearing stuff about climate change being a hoax or big government finger wagging, tree huggers trying to be preachy, blah, blah, blah. We don't want to make one damned sacrifice. And so this little-known agency, let's be honest, most of MAGA had no idea this agency existed before. And its budget is a pittance on the federal budget. Maybe it's the cruelty that is the point in this case internationally as well. I don't know. I do know that our giving aid to foreign countries and people in foreign countries since the Kennedy administration has been a mechanism for us to at least put on a face to show that we do have an ounce, and I do literally mean an ounce out of a gallon of empathy for the strife and struggles of nations around the world impacted, not just by unforeseen natural disasters or political strife, the rogue earthquake that Chile may be rocked with, but with the impacts of our America First foreign diplomacy, economic diplomacy, trade policy. U.S. aid has sort of been our little way of saying, hey, sorry, we got you this card. It's a $50 gift card. I mean, you can get a few Starbucks with it. It literally is, it's a pittance. It's a drop in the bucket comparable to, it's another one of those mechanisms. You know, I talked about this a lot during the 2024 presidential cycle, that dealing with immigration is about dealing with root causation, right? You don't want folks washing up at our borders, coming here unnecessarily. Well, two things. You focus on stopping the lure, what brings them here. You don't want cats on your front porch, don't leave kibble out, right? You deal with those who are doing the illegal hiring. We don't see ICE rounding up these folks, the CEOs, the business. We don't see that. Why? We're not deporting them. We're not seizing their assets. Why? Why don't we do that? But we're also not dealing with root causation. We're not dealing with the things that we are part and parcely responsible for, if not wholly responsible for. Dealing with the root causation of migration from Central and South America. Almost literally the title of a Biden administration policy where Vice President Kamala Harris was in charge of 3 nations in the Northern Triangle of Central America. And those 3 nations, by the way, where policies were put into place, I think some of it through USAID, we were actually starting to see a drawdown in migration from those 3 countries. It was working. It was working. And now a lot of it has been unplugged, unfunded, imperiled, reversed. These wild swings that we have politically every 4 years make this dangerous. The FBI is going to have a hard time recruiting new agents, knowing that, holy shit, I could go through all that training just to have one madman lunatic win one presidential or one election cycle, and next thing I know, I'm being purged. Okay, good luck. Good luck recruiting new FBI agents. Hear the music. That's going to do it for today's Ron Show. Show notes, as always, at RonShowATL.com. Show replays, 5 p.m. on America One Radio, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn. We air weekdays, 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on America One Radio. Or wherever you podcast. Show notes, as always, at RonShowATL.com. Have a great day.